When we refer to the Epstein class, it means a certain stratum of extreme morbid wealth, influence, and power that becomes morally untethered and thus hyper-corrupt. At an esoteric level, we're not looking merely at crime, we're examining degeneration of consciousness. From this esoteric standpoint, there are several interlocking principles at work. Firstly, power without initiation becomes predatory. In the mystery traditions, power is never meant to be separated from inner development. When an individual gains immense material power without undergoing ethical and spiritual refinement, the personality becomes hypertrophied. The ego expands, but the soul does not. In such cases, people begin to test boundaries. The ordinary no longer stimulates them. They begin seeking extremes, because power without inner grounding becomes a drug. Children represent vulnerability, innocence, and power imbalance. For a corrupted psyche, domination becomes intoxicating. This is not mystical, it is psychological and spiritual pathology, amplified by wealth and immunity. Secondly, the inversion of the sacred. Across esoteric traditions, the child symbolizes purity of potential, the unconditioned soul, and a divine spark not yet calcified by the world. To harm a child is symbolically to attack innocence itself. In occult philosophy, there is a concept of inversion, the deliberate corruption of what is sacred. When individuals become spiritually inverted, they derive stimulation not from creation but from violation. The black magician, in classical esoteric language, is not someone with spooky powers. It is someone who uses intelligence and will divorced from conscience. Such people often become fascinated with taboo, because taboo represents transgression of cosmic law. Third, extreme morbid wealth creates psychological isolation. There is another, less dramatic but equally powerful factor. When individuals live in environments where there are no consequences, everyone is dependent on them, and they are insulated from ordinary human feedback, their empathy atrophies. Esoterically speaking, empathy is a function of the heart center. If the heart center is undeveloped and the will center is hyperdeveloped, you get cold dominance. Children become targets, not as much because of ritual mysticism, but because they are defenseless and controllable. Predators seek asymmetry. Fourthly, the shadow of civilization. Jungian esotericism would say something deeper still. When a society suppresses its shadow, its greed, lust for power, and exploitation, that shadow accumulates in the elite strata where power concentrates. The Epstein phenomenon is less about secret occult cults and more about moral decay enabled by power, systemic protection of predators, and collective denial. When institutions protect abusers, the abuse metastasizes. Lastly, any sort of supernatural motive is a further conversation. We'll speak again at a later time regarding the idea of elite abuse networks operating for occult energy harvesting, ritual power, or mystical purposes. Whether fully or just partially untrue, that narrative tends to distract from the real issue, which is simple exploitation enabled by wealth and complicity. At a true esoteric level, this phenomenon represents power severed from conscience, intelligence severed from wisdom, and will severed from compassion. And whenever those separations occur, whether in a king, a corporation, or an individual, innocence becomes endangered. The mystery traditions teach that real initiation requires greater responsibility as one gains power. When that law is ignored, degeneration follows.